For Voice of Russia here in Washington, I'm Alex Hazeltine. We're speaking with Vadim Guschin. He's the head of the Social Psychology Department at the Institute for the Study of Biomedical Problems and one of the coordinators of the Mars 500 project, a project in which 6 men, scientists in fact, have locked themselves in seclusion to replicate a trip to Mars. And we're specifically discussing the psychological toll that this took on them, the extreme isolation, among other things. Now, before we took the break, we were talking about the cross-cultural differences. This is an international group of people, including French, Italian, Chinese, and Russian scientists. So perhaps we could touch on that, just maybe even an anecdote or just some examples of the type of cultural differences that caused stress or confrontation during this project.
I think that, for example, it will be good, we can speak about, for example, nutrition. Nutrition was organized in such a way that in the first part of the mission, menu was made, say, in the European style. There was German food provided for the crew, and all crew members had, let's say, different opinions about this food, not about the quality, but about, say, their attitude to this kind of food. For Chinese, for example, was too much to eat, and this phenomena was increasing throughout the mission. I think now mostly he is thinking about the opportunity to get some Chinese food at the end of the mission. For him, it became, let's say, like something like idea fix, that he's thinking about that too much probably. And we couldn't provide him because that's the regulation that we cannot resupply the crew. So these cultural differences could influence not only the gastrointestinal system itself, but mood, attitudes, and even psychic capacity of the subject. But what is even more surprising that even for our European colleagues, they miss the variety of food they get used to before the mission. And I think that now they will talk about food a lot after the mission. So food can be not just the issue about providing proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, but can be an issue from the point of view of mood and working capacity. And finally, I want just to use anecdotal information from the previous simulations when there was a big conflict between two parts of the crew in Europe, because one part of the crew, they prefer North European cuisine, and another part, they prefer South European cuisine. It was such a tension between the crew members on the basis of the food they were provided with. So I think that cross-cultural issues are very important in the psychological support and medical support of the future prolonged interplanetary mission.
Now, did all the scientists involved in this, did they have at least a common language that they could speak? I know we have people coming from all over the world.
I think they are all speaking English. Of course, the extent is a little bit different, but they can speak, and that's they do all the time. If they want to speak with each other, they mostly speak English. Of course, Russians are speaking with each other Russian, but when they speak with Chinese, they're using English. Or when Europeans are speaking with Russians, they're all speaking English.
So let's talk a little bit about what type of diversions did these guys have while they were locked in there? I mean, they were there for a year and a half. Did they have music? Did they have their iPods? Did they have books? What type of activities were they afforded while they were in there in such isolation?
We tried to provide them as much as possible data from Earth, including even virtual reality pictures of nature, and a lot of music. And they received data with delay, but they received it on the regular basis, which means that they received messages from home, they received news, of course with delay, not immediately, but we provide them on a regular basis with all the information, what was going on in their own places. They had information about their families and friends, again, but with delay. And of course, they could send messages by themselves, which is also very important to drain out feelings and emotions and to share them with your close surrounding. Of course, it's not like when we're talking with you, for example, directly, but still better than nothing. And of course, psychological support, again, is an issue, especially if there is a delay in communication. And as far as I know now, agencies are planning to simulate delay on ISS to investigate this phenomena even more in more details, because it's not that straightforward, the understanding of this event. It gives the crew some independency and some more opportunities for self-expression. At the same time, the crew is more missing psychological support and the opportunity to talk directly to the close surrounding, social surrounding, I mean.
Now, we only have a couple minutes left, but I'd like to ask, what have you learned that you think will be most useful moving forward as the international space exploration community moves towards eventual trips to Mars? What do you think is the most useful lesson that you've learned through this project?
I think we came to the system of selection, and we think now that the requirements, psychological requirements for the selection for the interplanetary mission should be different from that criteria for the orbital flight. I think it will be more people, let's say, oriented on themselves, with more initiative, with more, let's say, need to improvise, to make decisions by themselves. Orbital crews, this like more obedient children. They have to do what mission control is commanding to them. In the autonomous flight, I think we have to rely more on more adventurous people with a lot of imagination and self-discovery. That's the main lessons learned for me.
And I guess as the last question, I know we mentioned food, but have you spoken to any of these scientists, and have they told you what they're looking forward to most about finishing this project? What is their plans for as soon as they come out?
I think these scientists, they have to analyze not what they get used to do, food intake, salt intake, but they have more to look at the data about the mood and working capacity of the crew members. As far as I know, they provide the crew with a lot of questionnaires and interviews referring to these particular issues. And that's due to Mars 500, due to the extreme duration of the mission and cross-cultural crew composition, mostly.
We've been speaking with Vadim Guschin. He's the head of the Social Psychology Department at the Institute for the Study of Biomedical Problems and one of the coordinators of the Mars 500 project. Thank you so much for joining us today, Vadim.
Thank you.